the sky. It's not doing anybody any good. Whereas the one on the right shines light down onto the billboard, not up into the sky. Floodlights are a big problem. You see them all over the place. And sometimes they're necessary. But a lot of times, they're just not done very well. And this is what I was trying to talk about earlier, where you need to let the lighting engineers make tall poles. If the lighting engineer has a tall pole and they have a floodlight, then they can point the light down. But if they have a short pole, then they have to shine the light up, straight out. So here's an example of a short pole with a floodlight on it, just throwing light right into an intersection and creating a traffic hazard. Not to mention that it looks really bad. Fast food lighting is a problem. A lot of times the fast food places will have a lot of glaring lights to try to attract business, I suppose. Whether it's not that successful, I don't really know. Here's another fast food restaurant where they've done a nice job at doing their nighttime lighting. And notice the sign here. It's got light letters on a dark background. And when we take these floodlights and put them, one after another, then we've got something that looks like that. In Seattle, you can go along the waterfront and you can see that situation. This is on one side of 99, on the east side of 99. You look across the street where they have the floodlights done like this, and it looks much better. It's much easier on the eyes. And here's another example, a parking lot where they've got the nice full cutoff lights, and you go out there at nighttime and it looks nice. It's beautiful. Here the point is that that's good looking. That's good property value. You'd like to live next to that. You'd like to have a house that's across the street from that. It looks good. You can see the stars. Yeah. Wall pack lights. You see these all over the place. They're another example of bad lights. And then we've got this horrible deal, that you see all over the place. These security lights. These guys can also be built so that they're fully shielded. So, this illustrates here what I'm talking about. So on the top is what we saw in the previous picture. We can put a shield on it or buy a light that's got the shield built into it, and the light goes down. Here's a security light that the hardware store should be carrying instead of that other kind, or a light that looks like this. Sports field lighting. The deal with sports field lighting is that really old sports field lighting in general is really horrible, and the newer systems are much, much better. If you're doing a project where you're renovating a field, put the effort into renovating the sports lighting while you're at it. It'll look a lot better, and it's going to make your property values go up. And then, people also want to know about safety, and that's where lighting gets kind of complicated when you start talking about safety. Things are quite often not as straightforward as you think they are. It's like, you think, if I've got my car parked next to a street light, it's going to be safe. Well, my brother-in-law did that. His wallet fell out of his pocket while he was getting out of his car a few weeks ago. And, of course, a burglar walking down the street sees his wallet there, smashes his window, and has got his wallet. Now, if he had his car parked where it's dark, the guy wouldn't have seen that. Schools will quite often not light up their playgrounds, because if they light up their playgrounds, they find that they get a lot of vandalism. If they keep it dark, it keeps the vandals away, because they can't see anything. They can't see what they're doing. So light creates nuisances, and in some respects can decrease safety. And there's a lot of health implications with light pollution. And first of all, like the aging eye, as you get older, your eyes become a lot more susceptible to glare. The optics in your eye become cloudier. They scatter the light more. Hey, when you look at a light, you see a halo around it. No matter how good your eyes are, you'll see some sort of a halo around it. By the time you get to the age of 70, that halo that you see around it will be twice as big. And by the time you get to 80, then it's 3 times as big. And your response times to light level slows down. So when you go from that dark movie theater out into the street and it's blinding bright, that takes you longer to adjust to. And when you go from the outside into that dark movie theater, it takes you longer to adjust. And think about a Think about a gas station. You pull into the gas station. If the gas station's lit to 50-foot candles, all of a sudden it's like brighter than an office environment. And there are gas stations that are lit to 50-foot candles. You're like in a bright office environment. Fill up your car, great, you can see everything. You pull out on the road, you're like, oh, can't see anything, so it creates a hazard. So if you can decrease glare, you make it easier for older people. And then more recently, there's been some very interesting research that's come about having to do with health concerns, like cancer, obesity, insulin or diabetes, and depression, which are related to getting light at nighttime. And this stuff is really, this research is really becoming mature, and it's going from the hypothesis stage to this is what's going on, this is true stage. There's been articles in the popular press about it. There was a statement made by the Interagency on the Research of Cancer, the IARC, where they concluded that people who do nighttime shift work are at risk to cancer. And there's some very strong evidence that's come out about this. There was a study done in Sweden where they looked at nighttime shift workers and discovered that they have like a 60 or 70% increase in breast cancer. And just to kind of illustrate this, here's these bars indicate the incidence of breast cancer per 100,000 women, and you've got countries going from North America on the top, China on the bottom. And by the way, if you were to look at these countries here and put them on this map of light pollution, you'd see the countries on the bottom are going to be in the dark areas, the countries in the top are going to be in the bright areas. So here you've got United States and Europe, Eastern Europe, here's Japan, Africa, China. But hey, here's where Japan was in the 1950s before it all got lit up. So it's some really interesting stuff. Another thing that's interesting they found is that women who are profoundly blind have less than half the rate of breast cancer. So that mechanism of sending the signal to the brain saying, hey, don't produce the melatonin has been cut off. So they have a lot higher melatonin levels. What about wildlife? Here's a cover of Science News where they had an article about the effects of light pollution on wildlife. And I like how they put Seattle on there as the poster child of light pollution. There's a lot more research that really should be done on this, but just to kind of illustrate a few samples, in Toronto, they have a big problem with birds running into the sides of buildings. After the bird migration in the morning, there's just piles of dead songbirds lying on the side of the building. So there's definitely some problems with birds. There's been studies showing that bats are disrupted by light. There's obviously the thing about moths spiraling around lights. So if you put out lights, you really disrupt what's going on in the forest and the moths. If you have lights next to a waterway, it can disrupt the migration of salmon. And there's been efforts made to prevent light from shining in the waterways. Let's see, so I guess that's what I have to say.